Bienvenidas, bienvenidos. Let's talk about the treasure trove that is Graecia Magna, Magna Graecia, the original colonists of the whole Mediterranean that are rivals to the Carthaginians and of course will give Rome a leg up. Let's talk about Magna Graecia. It's really important. It's an important part of history of the whole Mediterranean, and I thought we'd talk about it, share a little bit today. But first, this is Latina Literati. What is Magna Graecia or Graecia Magna? Basically, it is the colonies that Greece will establish throughout Italy. Why? About the 5th century BC, Greece says, wow, there's some amazing lands across the sea, very fertile and not that many people, not that many inhabitants. Let's go get them. So as all colonizers, the Greeks take their culture, impose their systems on the different groups, everything from Etruscans in the north to the different groups that are in Sicily. Sicily is going to be central to what is Magna Graecia. And so you, for hundreds of years, have these settlements of Greeks that establish their agricultural methods, their culture, the Greek writing, their temples, and of course their trade. Trade is going to be central. Just like the Carthaginians, masters of the Mediterranean that slowly give way through rivalry, through warfare, but also through interesting, a new DNA report out of Harvard says that Carthaginians and Greeks had a great deal of DNA. So they were doing a lot more than just fighting. And so you have these city-states that are rising up all over the Mediterranean, coming from originally Greece. Cities like Tarentum, Syracuse, from which the word Sybaritic, as in loving a good life, comes from. Of course, Syracuse aren't just kind of outposts. They are centers of trade, of culture, just really thriving life. Of course, based on the fertile areas of Sicily because of Mount Etna and the volcanic soil, but also these amazing trade routes. Sicily being in the middle of the Mediterranean means that it is the heartbeat of the trade through all of these different areas. And Greece is taking advantage of that. They are selling everything to everyone on these ships and are growing very, very wealthy because of that. By the 6th century BC, these areas that have originally colonized by Greeks are actually living better than the Greeks in Greece. So you have groups like, as I mentioned, the Etruscans in the north, Lucanians in the south, that have integrated into Greek culture, but they're also living large. I mean, they're living really well in these economic, political systems set up by the Greeks. So people are pretty happy, but of course, things change. And as Greece starts to decrease in importance, Rome is coming up. And so Rome starts to take over what we know as Magna Graecia or Greater Greece. These cities throughout, especially Sicily, but also southern Italy, are so important. They're attracting thinkers, philosophers, cultural icons, people like Pythagoras, Pythagorean theorem, important mathematician. People are coming to these centers because they're being supported in their learning. The temples, the academies, the libraries, these are really important as people are gathering knowledge and thinking about things like theorems. So you have this kind of epoch, this height of civilization, Greek civilization, that is also mixed with, of course, the people who were already there. And slowly but surely, Rome starts to chip away at these cities, taking some of them slowly from the Greeks, eventually incorporating all of that into what would be the Roman Empire. By the 3rd century, Rome's shadow is looming large over these city-states, over these Greek territories. And although Rome will eventually take over the areas that are considered Magna Graecia, Greater Greece, it is Greek culture and religion and traditions and structures and architecture that we recognize now as Roman. In other words, Rome just kind of supplants, but it is the Greek aspects of cultural life that remain, and form part of, or the basis of, what we considered Roman culture. So who conquers who? I'm not going to say one conquered the other, but I'm going to say that you had a blending of the two by the first century. Why is Magna Graecia or Gracia Magna so important, impactful even today? Well, everything from Roman and Greek legal bases, architecture, philosophy, the way of looking at the world. If you're from the Western world, the Western civilization, these are foundational pillars that we still incorporate in our perspective, in our culture today. And so you don't just have Sparta or Athens as important in Greece. You have Graecia Magna, Greater Greece, as fundamental, as central to this Mediterranean, Western European cultural foundation. This is really, really important. So Carthage are the first real masters of the Mediterranean. Remember, they're originally from what is now Tyre in Lebanon, and led by a woman, Alisa. Their shields are said to have bore her resemblance. So the Carthaginian warriors always wore Queen Alisa's visage, her face on their shields. And then you have the Greeks. And you have then the Romans taking this up as the basis of what we consider Western civilization. And so if you want to get past kind of just the Roman, what we consider to be Roman veneer, you've got to get to Magna Graecia, you've got to get to the Carthaginians to really understand where our perspective comes from even today. So I hope you've enjoyed this journey into a little bit of Magna Graecia and onto my favorite part of the video, the book recommendations. The first book I'm going to recommend is Pythagoras. Icon, huge importance in mathematics and our modern science. And so a book by Charles Kahn on Pythagoras and these important people in Greater Greece, in Magna Graecia, I think is just central. And it's a wonderful way to understand how daily life was for these important people and for everyday people in all of these areas. The next book is called The Greeks Overseas by John Boardman. And so this book obviously looks at what happens when the Greeks form colonies, establish cities, and go and live in other parts of the Mediterranean, mostly Sicily and southern Italy. And again, gives you a sense of what daily life was like and how were these cities set up and what did it mean to have these cities thriving all over the Mediterranean. Recommend the book. And as always, check your local library, your local bookseller. We want to celebrate and support our local booksellers and our local libraries. The final book I'm going to recommend is called, and this is a book that really looks at temples and the importance of the goddess. We've touched upon this before, but the divine feminine and the importance of women in society, at least at the divine level, I think is an important area to study. And so to look at one of the best preserved cities from the Graecia Magna and to look at what life was like and the temples preserved there is also an important aspect to study. So again, thank you so much for joining us on this joint journey through Graecia Magna. We would love to hear your opinion. What are you reading? Do you have books to recommend? And what would you like us to talk about? Because we'd be happy to do the research and share with you information on different topics. As always, con mucho cariño, mucho salud, mucho amor. Gracias.